Today, Unreal Engine 5.7 has exited preview and is now available for everyone. And this is a big release, especially for 3D artists and world builders, because many of the features that have been teased and experimental throughout the different 5.0 versions are now hitting production readiness. But of course, as always, there are some new surprises to play with as well. I had planned to do a more in-depth walkthrough of each feature for this stable release, but as I opened my engine today, I quietly watched it update from preview to stable. So I thought I'd just get this quick feature highlight out now for those of you experiencing the same thing today. So if you missed all of the other videos dropped on YouTube when it was announced in preview, or if you just want a quick reminder of the biggest updates that 3D artists should be aware of in procedural world building and lighting and materials in 5.7, and which of those features are production ready versus still being experimental, then you're in the right place, and let's go ahead and hop into it. The first exciting update here is that Unreal's Procedural Content Generation Framework, also known as PCG, is now production ready in 5.7, and it's nearly twice as fast as it was in 5.5. In the past, building large-scale environments meant hand-placing everything, which meant a lot of time or a large team, or building your own tools using maybe something like Houdini to get a bit more leverage over that process. But with Unreal 5.2, Epic introduced their own procedural content generation framework called PCG, which was a huge step forward for small teams and solo creators to begin building larger environments directly inside of Unreal in less time. And while that feature has remained experimental since its announcement, with 5.7, PCG has now moved to a production-ready state. And alongside that stabilization, Unreal has also introduced a brand new PCG Editor Mode that offers a library of customizable tools for leveraging the PCG framework as you build environments directly in the viewport. Previously, you would need to create a PCG graph separately and then jump back and forth between the graph and your scene. But now you can just draw a spline and freely paint or create a volume for an associated PCG graph and have its parameters available for live editing right there in the editor mode in real time, which makes this much more intuitive and efficient than what we had before. One other major update to PCG is that PCG graphs are now standalone in Unreal Engine 5.7. Previously, these graphs had to run through a PCG component in a level or actor, so generation was tied to a world context. But now in 5.7, graphs can execute directly in the editor for asset workflows, which means no level wiring is needed and you can generate outputs to the content browser and reuse and migrate them across projects or to share them with your team. It's important to note here that Epic mentions while it is production ready, PCG is still very much under active development, so we can expect more updates in future releases. Now, as you build out those larger worlds using PCG, one of the new things that Unreal is introducing as experimental in 5.7 is something called Nanite Voxelized Foliage, which is designed to render and animate dense vegetation much more efficiently on current gen hardware. For those who missed it, be sure to check out the stunning Witcher 4 tech demo from Unreal Fest, where they demonstrated nanite foliage in a scene with over 20,000 trees, smoothly hitting 60 FPS on a base PS5. To unlock this level of performance upgrade, nanite foliage has three systems working hand in hand. The first is nanite assemblies, which organizes foliage instances into groups and essentially provides building blocks to efficiently manage asset variations and reduces storage, memory, and rendering cost. The second is nanite skinning, which drives dynamic motion with systems like wind. And the third is nanite voxels, which preserves incredible detail, animation, and material characteristics at any distance at a fraction of the cost that we used to experience with a traditional card-based approach, which was incredibly prone to overdraw. Nanite foliage is still shipping as experimental, but this is the first viable option for high-density foliage without extending extensive optimization needed. So I think we can all expect our worlds to have a lot more green in them in the near future. And to help with exactly that, Unreal is also introducing the Procedural Vegetation Editor, which is a brand new experimental plugin in 5.7. And this editor lets you customize vegetation directly inside of Unreal without needing to rely on an external tool like SpeedTree or Houdini. Previous workflows in this area for many of us would, I guess, be to hope that you could source an existing asset pack of scanned vegetation, like for example with the original Megascans trees, and if not, I guess learn how to use SpeedTree and to create whatever it is that you're looking for and to import it over to Unreal and to test them and realize you need changes and go back to SpeedTree and export and re-import. And it would take a lot of time if you needed something custom at all. Or of course, you could use tools like Houdini to build out a procedural generator tool if you are that technical. Now, all of that works, and frankly, I do enjoy working in SpeedTree when I get the chance, though it does add another application to our pipeline. But now with the introduction of the Procedural Vegetation Editor, you can take existing assets from Fab, like with the brand new Quixel Megaplants, and then modify them using a PCG-based node graph inside of Unreal, and you can do things like adjusting branch distribution or change how gravity affects the tree shape, or easily swap in different models and export as static or skeletal meshes and then work with Nanite foliage. It is worth noting here that at launch, Megaplants and the Procedural Vegetation Editor itself are incredibly limited and certainly not a true replacement for things like SpeedTree. But of course, this is a super early look at both, so I'd expect Megaplants and the Procedural Editor itself to gain significantly more controls in future updates. And if you do want to test these out right now, you first need to go up to your plugins in Unreal and to enable the Procedural Vegetation Editor, and then to hop over into your project settings to also enable Nanite foliage. Then you just go over to Fab and claim the Megaplants themselves. If you tried searching for Megaplants while 5.7 was in preview like I did, you might have struggled to find them in Fab, but as of today, you can just search Megaplants in Fab and with one click, add the initial set of these for free into your library to begin testing them with that new editor. If we move on from procedural world building to lighting and materials, Unreal has brought an update to MegaLights and upgraded it from experimental to beta, and it now supports directional lights and Niagara particle lights and translucency and hair grooms. As a refresher, MegaLights lets us use hundreds or even thousands of lights that all contribute to lighting and removes shadow casting limitations while giving us access to things like rendering textured area lights that can be used for billboards or monitors and other kinds of emissive materials. MegaLights was originally announced for 5.5, but it's been in an experimental state since then, and it didn't support those key lighting types until now. It still isn't fully production ready yet, but as they've moved it up to beta, you should be able to start taking it more seriously with those added features, and hopefully we can expect fewer bugs and quirks with better performance. What is moving to production ready state in 5.7 is Substrate, which is the new material framework that all new Unreal Engine projects will use by default going forward. The way that Unreal describes Substrate is that it's built to be a modular, expressive, and flexible framework for describing material appearances, and their approach and intent with Substrate is to begin removing a lot of the abstractions, for example with specular and metallic, that they used in the past to achieve certain looks, and they're now replacing them with the actual physical properties of matter so that they can more accurately model how light should interact with those properties of materials. But to put it more plainly, Substrate is Unreal's new default approach to materials that entirely replaces the set of fixed shading models like subsurface and cloth that we had to pick from in the past, and it now instead offers a more robust single model that helps you get high quality physical accuracy regardless of what it is you're trying to create. Which means that instead of having to pick from a shading model, you can now layer complex materials with things like fuzz or clear coats and iridescence in a physically accurate way. We did get a first look at Substrate back in 5.2, I believe, but now as of 5.7, Substrate is finally production ready, and it's the default for all new projects in Unreal going forward. Epic also promised a new Substrate material pack example, but I couldn't find it in any of the materials today during the release. I did notice that the Content Examples project did receive an update as of today, and there are quite a few Substrate materials in there, so it's possible that they just inserted them directly in there, but I'll post an update in the newsletter if they drop a separate pack over the weekend. And for the character artists out there, 5.7 brings a number of animation and quality life updates. For example, selection sets now let you create complex selections with a single click. An update to the Skeletal Editor tools let you sculpt blend shapes, paint weights, and place bones all directly in the Skeletal Editor. Hair art gets better directability by letting artists directly deform and animate guides and strands with a joint-based workflow that blends physics with intentional poses in a way that was not possible before. A new dependency view has also been added to visualize relationships between controls, bones, and modules. Spatially aware retargeting is also now available as experimental, and it allows artists to transfer animations between different characters without having to worry about self-collision. For those on Mac and Linux, you will be happy to hear that the MetaHuman Creator plugin that was introduced in 5.6 for Windows is now available on your platforms as well. There are a ton of other features getting major upgrades across every aspect of Unreal for 5.7, which you can check out on the public roadmap, which I'll link in the description. But one of those that I'm really excited about that sort of touches on all of them at the same time is the integration of the new AI assistant. We first saw this assistant introduced over in the Unreal Engine documentation itself as the developer assistant, but now it's available directly in the engine. And this could prove interesting in the future, since as opposed to the developer assistant hosted on the online forums, theoretically the plugin in Unreal could progressively have more context on your specific scene or project that it could use to silently augment your prompts with more accurate or relevant information for whatever it is that you're working on. Now, I've seen a few videos going around calling out how the AI assistant is currently very experimental in its current states, and it often hallucinates feature names and button names, or it refers to much older deprecated versions of Unreal. So your mileage may vary in terms of its immediate accuracy, depending on the complexity of what you're trying to achieve or ask it. But I think that over time, as it improves, this will be a great resource to quickly get some quick assistance and answers to common things, like, for example, console commands, which I have to look up every darn time that I want to use them in the actual documentation. So it would be nice just to have it handy right there in the engine. So yeah, it is experimental and it might be rough in some spots, but I do recommend checking it out to see if it's helpful in saving at least a few of those trips between your actual project and the mess of tabs that you probably have over in your browser. If you're interested in a more in-depth breakdown of any of the features I covered, or maybe the ones I missed, then let me know down in the comments. But if you did find this quick intro helpful, this is exactly what this channel and my newsletter are dedicated to. So if you want to stay ahead of where the future of world building and our industry is headed, then make sure to sign up for the newsletter linked below. Thank you for being here, and I'll catch you in the next one.